But for now, the Russians have concentrated all their forces to surround the Bakhmut city. They are attacking it from the north and south, trying to cut off supplies to the Ukrainian troops. Enemy tanks are trying to break into the city, but the Ukrainian artillery is not sleeping. An Excalibur projectile accurately destroyed a moving Russian tank. Later, another tank is destroyed while trying to enter the city. Ukrainian artillerymen ruthlessly destroy enemy vehicles. Anything marked with the letter Z must be destroyed and burned by any means necessary. The Russians can barely break into Bakhmut with armored vehicles. Therefore, they rely on the infantry and constantly send them into assaults. Against them, the Ukrainians mainly use 60 and 80 caliber mortars. This is the most effective weapon against the advancing infantry. Fire adjustment is conducted from a hidden observation post. Each successful hit brings joy to the Ukrainian commanders. Mortars almost never stop in Bakhmut. On the eastern side, the fighting is already taking place directly on the streets of the city. The enemy is trying to occupy the buildings and turn them into strongholds. Once peaceful houses become a battlefield. Ukrainians have to fight for every street, for every house. The most difficult thing is to knock the enemy out of the buildings. To do this, you have to use a large caliber machine gun. And in the most difficult situations, only tanks can help. The Russians are not afraid to use fighter jets, knowing that the Ukrainians can easily shoot down their planes. In these footage, you can see a downed Russian Su-25 on fire. The pilot ejected and parachuted down to ground. Ukrainians also actively use aviation, Mi-8 helicopters. But the main striking force is still artillery. The Russian troops try to destroy the most valuable Ukrainian M777 howitzers by attacking them with Lancet kamikaze drones, and they often succeed. Sometimes, the Lancet hits projectiles near the howitzer. In this video, we see how a Ukrainian soldier is trying to save shells from detonation. Dangerous, but necessary work. The M777 howitzer can still be repaired, but the shells cannot. Exploding, they can do more damage than a Russian drone. In order to protect the howitzers, the Ukrainians cover them with such nets. The Russians also use the Lancet drones to destroy other important Ukrainian weapons, such as the Stormer HVM air defense system. But Ukrainians also have kamikaze drones. On this video footage, you can see how they are used on enemy armored vehicles. Tank destroyed too. And on this video, Ukrainian drones tracked down and destroyed 2 Russian air defense systems. Ukrainians destroy enemy armored vehicles with artillery strikes. The Excalibur's unique high-precision guided projectile allows them to destroy tanks with pinpoint accuracy. It is controlled by aerodynamic rudders and uses GPS. In fact, it turns Ukrainian howitzers into large caliber sniper rifles, capable of hitting single targets tens of kilometers away. The Russians can only dream of such accuracy. They don't have high-precision artillery at all. Because of this, they spend more ammo than they need. But most of all, Russians love to use MLRS systems. This is the most indiscriminate weapon ever made. The Bakhmut city and its surroundings look like a landscape after the First World War just because of this type of weapon. Hundreds and thousands of exploding shells destroy houses and trees, mixing everything with the ground. This is how the Russians hope to win, by leaving behind scorched earth. And this is the 2S7 self-propelled howitzer, the most powerful Russian gun. Its 203mm shell is capable of reaching up to 20 miles and causing enormous damage to the enemy. Fortunately, the Russians do not have many of these shells, and then use them not often. Ukrainians actively use the M270 launcher near Bakhmut. It's like doubled HIMARS. Ukrainians hide it in the forest, as it is a very valuable weapon. It has an important role to play to destroy enemy ammunition depots, command posts, and enemy MLRS systems. Every day, Ukrainians destroy some large Russian depot, as you can see on the footage. On the outskirts of the Bakhmut, Ukrainian troops defend their positions in trenches. This is a personal video from a Ukrainian soldier. It is the first battle in his life. These guys are taking the brunt of the enemy artillery. Before advancing, the Russians pour tons of artillery shells on them. And then they advance with the supportive mortar fire. Ukrainian soldiers must first survive under artillery strikes, and then repel attacks on their positions. The enemy is trying to cut off the roads that supply the city. They are trying to surround the city and force the Ukrainian troops to leave. Bakhmut is already in a semi-encircled, but as long as there is a road to it, the city can be held. Let me tell you about the road to Bakhmut. Ukrainians call it the Road of Life. Every day and night, Ukrainian troops are supplied along it. And on the way back, they transport the wounded. You can see a lot of destroyed Ukrainian equipment along the Road of Life. This is because the enemy often shells the road. Many vehicles never make it to the city with food supplies, and many of the wounded never made it out. It's one of the saddest places in Ukraine. Sometimes, even the weather complicates life on the front line. Due to the rains, the ground becomes muddy and turns into a swamp. This brings additional moral discomfort to the soldiers. It is especially difficult when water appears in the trenches. Heavy armored vehicles cannot pass through the dirt roads. These roads become an additional challenge for the soldiers. Mud complicates logistics and takes away precious time. As you know, armored vehicles like firm ground. Only then can the army advance quickly and successfully. The Ukrainian command consults every few days on the need to hold Bakhmut. The effectiveness ratio is currently in favor of Ukraine. This means that the enemy is suffering much more losses here than Ukraine. Bakhmut buys time while the main forces of the Ukrainian army prepare for a major counteroffensive. In these video footage, you can see the presumed use of the American high-precision bomb, JDAM, in the Bakhmut city. Several videos have leaked online confirming this, and if it is true, the Russians should definitely worry. The JDAM bomb is dropped from an aircraft and can fly up to 40 miles, hitting the target precisely and causing significant damage to enemy structures. See, for example, how the Americans bombed JDAM in Afghanistan. A small village was wiped off the face of the earth. When the Ukrainian army goes on the counteroffensive, the Russians' fortified positions will also be swept away by this massive fire. Putin needs some kind of victory. Russians hope to capture the city of Bakhmut with great persistence and sacrifices to demonstrate to the world at least some combat capability of the Russian army. But even if the Russians capture the city, it will not bring them any benefit. The fate of this war will soon be decided by the Ukrainian counteroffensive, which we all look forward to. Well, if you like this episode and would like to see more, then please like and leave your comment. It inspires me to keep working on new videos.